Hey, what's going on? What's happening, everybody? Peace and power and elevation. Uh, be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hit my. Hold on. Oh, wait. Hold on. Okay. All right. So let's try this again. All right. Peace and power, elevation. Be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. And um, as I was saying, please make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, like my channel, share my channel. So on today's topic, uh, I want to cover something because that many people don't discuss much about. I have covered a topic in the past about opioid. So if you look at my previous video, but also I just found out about this particular plant, right? Called the Iboga. So the Iboga is a plant that comes out of Central West Africa region in the Congo area. And it was said to be that this plant is supposed to be used to help people to overcome their opioid addiction. So it can be used in rituals and African rituals, dances, and stuff. So I have information. So I'm going to go into what the opioid is, and I'm going to also go into what the Iboga. Okay, I have a couple of books and also so I'm gonna read this coming from Vinyasa. He put, cool topic. I've been trying to get folks to talk about this one for a minute. Salutes. Yeah, it needs to be discussed only because people don't realize that opioid is an epidemic now. At once upon a time was crack cocaine. That's an epidemic, which is still an epidemic, but opioid is a serious epidemic. And the reason why it's a serious epidemic because it has become very popular. So now there's different versions of opioids. You got the synthetic version and you got the actual kind that is used in the medical industry. So let me give you some little background on the opioid, right? So opioids are like very strong painkillers. So for those people who done had surgeries or they done just had baby or something like that, what doctors will usually do is give them those pills to take to eliminate those serious side effects and pains and stuff from those events that took place. So what they'll do, they'll take, I think they usually be around like 400 milligram, or they could be more than that. All right, because they some very strong painkillers. And I know people that have taken opioids as far as like medicine is concerned, but they also got the kind that they sell on the streets. All right, now if some people would take some opioids and out the medical industry or out the pharmaceutical facility, and they'll sell them out there on the street. Some of them would do that, but there are people that actually make them. That actually make these pills. Now, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they come up with the creative idea. Okay. I don't know anything about that. I'm not an expert on that. But I do know that there is a synthetic kind out there. So, but anyways, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get into the topic, both of these topics. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna play the video. So I think that it'll be easier to play the video first. Then I can go ahead and get into the subject as far as the statistics and etc. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and pull up this little disclaimer. So you gotta put a disclaimer. So the disclaimer saying that the copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance made for fair use for purpose such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of all right. So it's basically showing that I do not own the rights to the material. So because I don't own the rights to the material, I have to put up that copyright disclaimer. Okay. But it's still always a possibility that YouTube can hit you with the copyrights. So it's always good to put up the copyright disclaimer. So you just don't own the rights to the material. That's all it is. You just using it just for educational purpose. And that's basically it. Okay, so let me go ahead and play this little video. So this video comes from Bloomberg. So if you guys go on Bloomberg.com, okay, um it talks about the Iboga plant and how it's supposed to help cure addiction.
Bwiti is a spiritual practice that forest-dwelling tribes of West Africa have been observing for untold millennia. At the center of this practice is the Iboga root, a plant indigenous to West Africa with powerful psychoactive effects which can last for days. Initiates are believed to commune with the dead, and it is believed to heal many ailments. Many locals consider this ancient practice witchcraft today. But Westerners have been increasingly drawn to Bwiti and the mysterious Iboga plant to cure a widespread modern affliction.
The opioid crisis may be far worse than initially thought.
We've interviewed lawmakers on the left and the right. They all say opioid addiction is a problem.
Many believe that this hallucinogenic root is the key to curing addiction.
You know, there's no other compound that will stop somebody from physically withdrawing on opiates. It's the only one.
Now science is rigorously testing this hypothesis. biotech companies are creating analogs of ibogaine, the primary component of the plant, and pushing for FDA approval to help curb the disastrous effects of the opioid epidemic. If successful, this mysterious compound could have the power to heal millions while seriously disrupting the multi-billion-dollar opioid market. In the US alone, over 81,000 drug overdose deaths occurred between 2019 and 2020. As more data comes in, that number is expected to be higher, and the CDC estimates that overdoses will exceed 100,000 in 2021. The situation couldn't be more urgent, and addicts are increasingly turning to Iboga after trying everything else to kick their habits. Usually, they hear it from word of mouth, and they have to travel abroad since the substance remains illegal in the United States. A cottage industry has formed in all corners of the world where Iboga is not regulated.
This is the place people come when, they've tried everything else, and fortunately, it's something that really works for them. Thank you, Mother Nature, for creating Iboga and giving us a tool to go deep inside of ourselves.
Levi Barker has embraced the Bwiti traditions and now runs a shamanistic healing center in Costa Rica called Iboga Wellness. A former addict himself, he knows the power of the plant firsthand.
I was kind of the first generation of the opioid epidemic that came through. I had a snowboarding accident when I was 19, got prescribed some Percocet, started taking them, started liking them, kept growing from there, and went through, every opioid pill you could imagine. And eventually that led to heroin as well. And so a dear friend of mine mentioned Iboga. I was able to just lay there and let it come in and cleanse me. And so I woke up that next day physically free of drugs. And so I knew from that point forward that I wanted to work with it.
So Levi, tell me, what exactly do we know about this plant and how it works?
With a lot of psychedelics, nobody's exactly sure how it works, but at least here, we keep seeing people come in and getting healed for a wide variety of issues. It does work because it changes lives and people report back.
Just as with the original Bwiti, the detox process lasts days and involves a carefully crafted setting as patients ingest the plant.
People come and get the treatment. They have some time afterwards where they get the proper coaching, and then definitely some aftercare involved. And, it's just a long process, especially when you're dealing with opiate addicts. I mean, that's at least a 3 to 6 day, process for them.
But sending every addict abroad for a week-long journey to kick their addiction just isn't practical. And if it's ever possible to scale this to the level we would need to make a dent in the epidemic, we're going to need the help of modern medicine.
My name is Andrew Krugel. I am a medicinal chemist and entrepreneur.
Okay, help me understand the difference between Iboga and ibogaine.
Ibogaine is the major active constituent of the Tabernath Iboga plant. So the plant itself contains a number of different psychoactive compounds, and ibogaine is the most well-known of those. That was first noted by a man named Howard Lotsoff in the 1960s, who had a long history of addiction to heroin, and he visited Western Africa looking for potential ways to treat his affliction, and he ended up going through an Iboga ceremony with the native people there and found himself cured of his heroin addiction. He brought that knowledge back to the West and popularized it.
But just as soon as it was popularized, it was labeled dangerous with no medical use.
In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
It got pulled in with all the other psychoactive compounds into the Schedule 1 classification at that time, despite the fact that there's no real history of use of ibogaine for recreational purposes. In fact, the ibogaine trip is not really a recreational experience at all.
The drug's legal status is only one of its hurdles. There are also some serious safety concerns, including its high toxicity levels and a tendency to induce cardiac arrhythmias, which in rare circumstances have resulted in death.
Ibogaine blocks a ion channel in the heart called the hERG channel, and blocking this ion channel can cause what's called QT prolongation. So the part of the heart rhythm gets elongated, and that has led to some deaths under the sort of uncontrolled circumstances in which it's used. We think that Ibogaine itself, under a more controlled setting with proper EKG monitoring, could be safe enough already to use, but with our novel analogs, we're trying to reduce inhibition of that hERG channel and thereby attenuate those cardiac risks.
But for many people desperate to kick their addiction, they're already willing to take that risk. In recent years, Levi's clinic has seen a surge in clients looking for help with more than just opioid addiction.
We have people come here for overeating. Some people have sex or porn addictions. People get addicted to thinking in the past, or they grow up with different belief systems that just filters their whole worldview.
And this is really where science hits a blind spot, since no large clinical trials have taken place with Ibogaine, and anecdotes like Levi's are not going to get far when it comes to FDA approvals.
There is certainly a large amount of anecdotal data to support its efficacy, and those small trials and anecdotes support it being extremely efficacious, not just in opioid addiction, but also in alcoholism, psychostimulant addiction, etc. But it's never been tested in a serious trial with hundreds of patients and appropriate controls. So until that's done, we can't say with any certainty that this is actually going to work.
So there's this study published in December of 2020. It's a non-toxic Ibogaine analog that separates the psychoactive effects from the anti-addictive properties. It was successfully tested on rodents, which is a long way from being tested on humans. Now, do you think there's a need for the psychoactive element for this drug to properly work? Or can we just extract these molecules, separate them, and take what we need?
I think that's the big question to answer, not just in Ibogaine research, but in psychedelic research across the board. Whether the higher level cognitive experience of a hallucinogenic transformative experience is what drives the efficacy, or if it's simply underlying neurobiological changes that we're not really aware of at the conscious level. And I think it's possible that both things are important. You might be aware of this transformative psychedelic experience while you're on the drug, but behind the scenes, there may also be a resetting of your reward circuitry and effects on nerve growth factors in the nucleus accumbens or the ventral tegmental area that actually physically reset some of the bad connectivity that is developed as a result of an addictive history. But we don't really understand the neurobiological underpinnings of human consciousness. Trying to
All right then. So that's that information. Okay, so I had to share a little bit of that with you guys. So, but I'm gonna go over it with some paper and documents to help back it up. But actually, as you can see, yeah, as you heard in the video, they also use this plant not just to overcome opioid addiction, but other forms of addiction too. And as you see, there's African rituals and other type of rituals taking place. So the guy in the beginning of that video, he was talking about how he became addicted to opioid because of the fact that because he was in a motorcycle accident and he started taking them and stuff like that. He said he has his own little not garden, but his own little healing facility. He has his own healing facility where he uses that particular plant. Now, speaking of healing facility, right? I happened to come across this, and I thought this was very interesting. I don't think a lot of people know about this. There's one in Florida, in Orlando, Florida. I'm gonna pull it up for you because I have the website right here. I think this is it. Yes, this is it. So this place is called Discover Iboga, the Church of America. All right, so here's their website and here's the location. They out in Orlando, Florida. Okay, so let's look on. Let me scoot this over. Let's look on to the about page. So it says Discover Iboga Church of America is a spiritual learning and healing center. Our mission is to help the community and the people in need with spiritual guidance to reconnect to their self and the creator to provide spiritual support. And it says healing practices and sacred Iboga ceremonies with Buwiti teachings. Iboga is the grandfather and queen mother of all medicinal plants, probably the most powerful plant medicine on earth. In Gabon, it is known as the tree of life and knowledge. Iboga is a plant medicine that works on all three levels: mental, physical, and spiritual healing. It is a powerful detoxifier and it resets the mind and the body on a cellular level. Okay. So it goes on to say that highly successful with spiritual healing, this medicine awakens the soul by often facilitating vision, which enable the member to clear trauma and get rid of anything that is holding them back from living a life of joy, find life's purpose. Our Iboga is imported from Gabon, Africa. It comes from our sister Buiti community. I don't know how to say, is it Mojihinda? Yeah, Mujihinda's village, cultivated with love, respect, tradition, and is from the highest quality, at least 10 years old. Following the Buiti tradition, never to harm nature, our brother and sisters only take some of the roots without harming the tree. We work with the second layer of the root bark, which has the highest amount of alkaloids. Alkaloids are beneficial in providing the possibility to reach deep spiritual. Okay. All right. So these are the founders. Oops. Hold on. All right. Give me a moment. Let me go back to it. All right. I'm back. Uh-oh. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So again, here's the founders. Okay. So here are the founders, and they have free membership. So they are located in Orlando, Florida. All right. They are located out there. That's the telephone number. That's the email address. It's very interesting to know that there is a Iboga church in United States that deals with that's a healing center. So that's a very interesting thing. Very interesting. All right, so let me read some of the comments before I continue. Somebody say you probably have to consume an extremely unpractical amount for damage to happen. Yeah, see, too much of anything can be bad for you. Too much of this, too much of that can do some serious damage. So too much of anything is not good for you. Small dosage, like anything else, will prevent that. And I could agree. Peace to Brother Centavo, Brother Vinyasa. Okay. Oh, and he put you should be able to pull up both the plant A, D, the chemical compound on Wiki Iboga and Bogang as well. Been a few years since I looked into it. All right, so what I'm gonna try to do is, I may put up Wikipedia source, but I'm just trying to put up scholarly sources like journal sources and whatnot. So that way people won't really accuse or saying that, oh, you totally relying on Wikipedia. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to post up other scholarly sources besides using Wikipedia all the time. You know what I mean? But I get what you're saying. All right, so let's go to some information. All right. If you guys can see my screen, great. So this one is chapter 57 in Bogang, right, which is come from Iboga. All right, so it's come from the Medical Toxicology of Drug Abuse, Synthesized Chemical and Psychoactive Plants, first edition, okay, by Donald G. Barcelo. And this was published in 2012. Okay, so it deals with the part 2 of psychoactive plants. All right, so getting back to what you was talking about, Brother Vinyasa. Basically, let's go into the history of Ibogaine. Is one of the psychoactive endo-alkaloids found in West Central Africa that has been part of the tribal culture in West Central Africa, which is like the Cameroon, Gabon, Republic of the Congo for many centuries. In the Western culture, French and the Belgian explorers first described the stimulant and aphrodisiac properties of the Iboga root during the 1800s. So Professor Henry Ballon provided the first botanical description of the Iboga plant before the Linnean Society in Paris in 1889. All right. So it goes in and say in the first part of the 20th century, French pharmacologists isolated a crystalline compound ibogaine or imbogi from the root of the Iboga plant that display a stimulant property in animal studies. All right. So let me just skip on down. It says the hallucinogenic effects of ibogaine were widely publicized in the United States during the 1960s, and ibogaine was used to facilitate psychotherapy. During this time, anecdotal reports suggested that the abuse of ibogaine reduced cravings for heroin and cocaine. In the 1970s, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration classified ibogaine along with lysergic acid dinucleotide, which is LSD, and mescaline as a Schedule 1 substance with use limited only to research. The status of ibogaine was similarly restricted in Belgium, Denmark, and Switzerland. France added ibogaine to their list of controlled substance in 2007. So the International Olympic Committee also banned the use of ibogaine in athletes as a potential doping agent. There was little interest in ibogaine from pharmaceutical companies in part because the structure of a natural substance cannot be patented. However, Howard Lassoff received a U.S. patent for the use of ibogaine in opioid withdrawals in 1985. During the late 1980s and the 1990s, ibogaine was introduced as an unapproved rapid treatment of addiction, primarily in alternative settings. Ibogaine is administered through a variety of self-help networks and private clinics in Mexico, the Caribbean, and Bahamas. All right, it says, I wish I would have heard about this before. My mom's died of a drug overdose. Maybe it could have helped. I'm sorry to hear about that. I'm sorry to hear about that, Centavo. I know that's very rough and that's very hard on you. Wow, and then a lot of things, because of the fact that the opioid crisis is something so major that a lot of people die from opioid addiction. And Vyasa put, I watched my moms go that way too. I'm sorry to hear that as well. Yeah, opioid is not something. See, opioid is something serious, and people gotta realize, when people become addicted to opioids, like people being addicted to crack cocaine, and they cannot get off those drugs. Like they can't really kick the habit. And see, even when you do get off, even when you do recover or go through rehab and all of that, it's still that part of your brain that's still affected by the drugs in itself. So it's like your brain does not go back to its normal activity, or it doesn't operate or function like it would. So it's still kind of just, it's like a permanent damage or semi-permanent damage to your brain. So it doesn't totally affect the whole entire brain, but that part of your brain, it's still affected because it's still trying to kick off that addiction. It's so used to that addiction. So that's why, some people who are recovering addicts, they carry on like a certain type of strange behavior, right? You can tell at one point they were addicted to drugs because they start to like act a little bit more aggressive, or they start to talk a little bit more louder or try to overtalk people. And then you can see that they kind of shake a little bit because they're trying to kick off that habit, right? So they can stop doing drugs for 10 years and they still got that addiction, they still got that habit, because it's that brain, that part of their brain still addicted, and is still craving for it. It doesn't go back to its functional state or its usual state like it was once before. So that's the damaging part of being addicted to drugs. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to deal with that for the rest of your life, trying to fight off your addictions, trying to fight off your habit. Your brain's still craving for it. That's the sad part about it. Damn shame, ain't it, to suffer as a child watching your mom suffer? Same here, bro. Yeah, it is. It's sad. So when your kids sit back and they watch you suffer from drug addiction, it just makes them feel some kind of way. It makes them feel some kind of way, and it really just gives them a different outlook on life. And they start to think, well, the world is reflected like this because of what I seen or what I had to witness with my parents. That's how your kids start to feel. And people don't realize that, when you're on drugs, you're not only affecting yourself, you're affecting your family, because your family has to witness you coming in and out the house and you're craving. You're taking furniture out the house, or you selling something valuable on the streets just so you get money and go buy the supplies for your addiction. You don't realize you put your family in a serious detrimental situation. And then you want to know why kids feel the way they do about their parents who were once drugs addicts. Yeah, you might recover. You might ask your child for forgiveness, but you got to realize that your child is going to still hold that against you, which they have the right to. They have that right to, because you put them in that predicament and they felt like you were being selfish, which that what happens when you become a drug addict. You become selfish because you start thinking more about yourself and you care more about your needs and care about your wants and not care about the people around you. But like I said, see, this goes back to sociology. It says person blame or system blame. So in this case, it's both. It's both a person blame because a person make a choice of doing drugs, but it's also the system blame because the system is not doing enough to get the drugs off the streets. So all the drugs that they no longer use in the medical field, they just throw them out there in the streets and people become addicted to them. And then you got these pharmaceutical company or these big corporations, they get away with these type of drugs. I think, which one was it? Which university was that? I think it's the one out in Philadelphia. I can't think of the name of the school in Philadelphia, but I know they was in some serious trouble regarding to opioid. It was some company that was working in cahoots with them, some type of drug company, and they got hit with $1 billion lawsuit. I think it was Temple University. Okay, yeah, it was Temple University. Jerezel. Okay, it was Jerezel. Yeah, that was the company. So that company got hit with a major lawsuit, with a big lawsuit, because they was held responsible for many people being addicted to opioids. But a lot of them get away with that. So again, we have to look at it as the system blame and look at it as a person blame. So that's what we learn in sociology, how to look at system and person blame. All right. So, and also I want to say this real quick, then I'm gonna get back to the source. There's a show on BET Plus called Trap Queens. If you guys are not familiar with that, you guys need to look it up. Watch that show, very informative. There was a sister on there. I mean, this sister was making a killing off of selling opioids. Now she opened up her pain management clinic. She started off having a physical therapy clinic because she wanted to honor her mother. But she seen that there was a doctor who was a gynecologist, right? And he had all kind of people coming in and out of there. He was like, okay. She was like, well, I know he ain't doing no gynecological work. I know he ain't doing nothing dealing with the woman's anatomy. So what is he doing? He was giving prescription over the counter to people, selling prescription medicine. Fake prescriptions at that. So people was going there to get prescription. And she was like, well, shoot, I can make money off of this. Long story short, so this lady opened up a clinic out in New Orleans, right? And she went to Baton Rouge, whatnot. She was making over $450,000 a month off of pain management, off of selling fake prescription. And then to make matters worse, she had a sister-in-law that was in the pharmaceutical company. She was a pharmacist. And she would get the medicine from the counter after work and bring it to her so she can sell it to the people on the streets. So this woman, when I tell you this lady was making a kill, she was making over $450,000. I said, dang, how you get away with opening up a clinic, a pain management clinic, without even having a license? Because those type of places, you got to have license to open such clinic like that. This woman been getting away with it for years until it finally caught up with her. But she was getting away with it. She was making over $450,000 a month from each facility. She had like 3 or 4 different facilities, and she was making over $450,000 a month. And then on top of that, she was selling cough syrup lean. She was selling lean on the streets as well. I said, dang. I said, dang, you got away with that for how many years? I mean, it's like got away with doing that for about 10 years. I said, God damn. God damn, you making money like that. You making a killing. You get 450 grand a month off of selling prescription medicine, giving fake prescription, making $450,000 a month. That's close to $500K a month. Off of selling fake prescription medicine. Okay? You prescribe the medicine to people and you're selling them. And then she was giving part of the money to the doctor that she knew. So he was getting part of that deal. He was getting paid off of that too. And then on top of that, she was at one point she was taking insurance for people, but then she had to stop taking insurance because the insurance company get majority of that money, and they only get like a certain percentage at the clinics and facilities. So she was like, okay, I had to stop taking insurance. So and I was telling people that they had to pay cash up. So people was paying cash. All right, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. So yeah, I got knocked off. So I got kicked off. But yeah, let me go ahead and continue. So yeah, she was making a killing off of selling these prescription medicine, $450,000. The doctor was getting part of the deal, and then on top of that, she was selling lean on the streets, and then yeah, she was making money. And I didn't think that was possible. I'm like, how do you get away with opening up a clinic and not have license to open one? That's the thing. But hey, all right. So let me continue. Yeah, I had got knocked off of here, so hopefully my connection stay on. All right. So again, yeah, this is the source that deals with the history of Iboga. Okay, so that's the crystalline compound name for it. Okay. All right. So Let's go down to the composition. So the composition is ibogaine is the most abundant alkaloid and extract of the root bark of the Iboga plant. The total alkaloid content of the dried root bark is 5 through 6%. The extract of tea, Iboga root extract is a complex mixture with the alkaloids and dilute vinegar and ammonia extract of the bark divided approximately as follows: ibogaine 80%, ibogaline 15%, and ibogamine up to 5%. Other sources of the ibogaine including Bacongaga, Thurasi, Abatusa, and Tabernae Montana Orientals, and Tabernae Montana Australis. All right, so so it said the method of use ibogaine has a long tradition of use in West Africa as a stimulant and hallucinogen. Indigenous people in West Africa use extract the root from the Iboga plant to improve endurance on hunting trips and to combat fatigue, thirst, and hunger. In higher doses, ibogaine is part of the initiation ceremony of the Bitiwi code of Gabon, where practitioners believe that the use of ibogaine from the root of the Iboga plant allows contact with ancestors in the spirit world. So the initiation ritual is similarly reported as near-death experiences and with out-of-body feelings and sense of floating over various landscape, encounters with deceased people, contact with divine entities, and arrival at the point of no return with subsequent return to reality. To obtain psychoactive effects, the pulverized root bark of the Iboga plant is swallowed with water. During these rituals, effects associated with the use of the root extracts included excitation, inebriation, dramatic visual illusion, sensory synthesis, euphoria, dysphoria, confusion, disorientation, and hallucination. However, the root extract contains indole alkaloids in addition to ibogaine. Therefore, the effects of ibogaine cannot be separated from other indole alkaloids in the extract. All right. So if you guys want to read up more, you guys just look under ibogaine, type it up, and it can be found on the medical toxicology of drug abuse, synthesized chemicals, and psychoactive plants. All right. So, and copyright John Willie and Son Incorporated, published 2012. You guys can look that up. Look up more about ibogaine and the Iboga plant. All right, so let's go on to the next source. So I hope you guys can still hear me. If you're still around, I hope y'all can hear me. All right, so now we're going to talk about the effect of ibogaine on withdrawal and cravings on patients with opioid use disorder. All right, this comes from Pacific University, Oregon. A clinical graduate project submitted to the faculty of the School of Physician Assistant Studies, Pacific University, okay? All right, for a Master's of Science degree on August 20, 2021. All right. So clinical graduate project instructor and mentor and Jeanette Sumner. Okay. So the biography is Valati Levant is a graduate of California State University, and Brooke Maharado is a graduate of Simpson University in Redding, California. Okay, she attained a Bachelor of Science in Biology and a Bachelor of Art in Spanish Language and Culture. All right, so let's go down. I'm gonna share the screen. All right, so you can see the background. The opioid use disorder affect millions of people worldwide with high instances of relapse. Many treatment modalities existence. So it goes into the methods, result, conclusion, etc. Okay, acknowledgement, table of contents. So this is like a dissertation, rather. All right, so let's talk about the effects of ibogaine on withdrawal and craving on patients with opioid use of disorder. All right, so going down to here, it talks about the background. So the effect of ibogaine or withdrawal and craving in patients with opioid use disorder. So the background says the opioid epidemic has long been a growing concern in the United States, where drugs overdose deaths are estimated to be over 67,000 per year. According to the Center for Disease Control, 70% of drug overdoses can be attributed to illicit or prescription opioids. Furthermore, the economic burden relating to opioid-related poisoning in the United States are astronomical. During the 2003 and 2013 years among adults aged 18 through 64 years, the percentage of non-medical use of prescription opioids decreased. In contrast, the prevalence of prescription opioid use disorder, frequency of use, and related mortality increased. So in 2009 alone, $20.4 billion were attributed to opioid related poisoning in the form of inpatient, emergency, and doctor's visits. A majority of costs were attributed to the absentees from work and mortality. The cost per overdose event was estimated around $37,274, with much of those funds being written off at the expenses of taxpayers. The total economic burden is estimated to be approximately $78.5 billion, which is derived from substance abuse treatment costs and criminal justice costs. And goes on to say this topic examines patients with opioid use disorder as diagnosed by DSM-5 criteria who suffer from withdrawals and cravings. Several treatment modalities exist for patients with OUD: full opioid agonist, partial agonist, partial antagonist, and opioid antagonist. Cognitive behavioral therapy is also utilized frequently as an adjunct or primary method of treatment for OUD. Unfortunately, many of the treatment modalities listed above have led to outcomes that are less favorable than desired. Medications such as how do you say this? Buprenorphine, and methadone. Yeah, buprenorphine and methadone have a very high likelihood of being diverted illegally, either for financial gain or due to overprescription. Let me highlight this for you. Either for financial gain or due to overprescription. So anything that's overprescribed means that if you got too much prescription medication over the counter, you have to get rid of it. Basically, is what they talking about here. So that's what sometimes pharmaceuticals do. Like they got too many prescriptions or they got too much prescribed, they have to get rid of, they have to discard it. And again, financial gain mean, selling drugs, hustling, etc. So full opioid agonists such as methadone present an added difficulty of tempering if the patient's goal is abstinence from opioids, because methadone is simply a substitute for opioid as a full agonist. A study from 2006 published in the Journal of Substance Abuse Treatment found that a cohort of 30 subjects were unable to successfully taper off of methadone, and their trial from methadone ultimately resulted either relapse in their addiction or a return to their maintenance with full opioid agonist therapy. This may be attributed to methadone's long half-life of approximately 24 hours. All right, so it goes into what ibogaine is. I already went over that before. So All right, so as you can see, they deal with the methods. They deal with the results here. All right, so let's go down to the results. So it says the search yielded 252 studies, which were screened for relevance. 8 studies were of interest. Only 4 met inclusion criteria. All studies that were included were observational cohort studies. All studies showed that ibogaine can mitigate withdrawal and cravings in patients with opioid use disorder. Overall quality of evidence was low due to lack of a control group, small sample size, loss to follow up, and subjective reporting. All right. So these are the studies. I'm not going to read any further, but basically, this is a study of the effect of ibogaine or withdrawal and craving on patients with opioid use disorder. So when people who take ibogaine, right, and they trying to like overcome their addiction, sometimes it doesn't always help them. It may cause them to go back and get addicted to opioid again. So yeah, so as I mean not Santava, but as Vinyasa mentioned earlier, that if you're doing too much of it, then what he mentioned up here earlier, he said you probably have to consume extremely unpractical amount for damage to happen. So yeah, if you consume too much amount of it, then yes, it's gonna bring about serious damage. Because how can't you get over your addiction? Now you become addicted to ibogaine when it's not supposed to be something that you become addicted to. It's supposed to be something that's supposed to help you to overcome another addiction that you have, right? All right, so there's some more statistics behind this. I'm just gonna go through them real quick. All right, so this one comes from NCHS Data Brief, number 406, April 2021. Co-involvement of opioids in drug overdose deaths involving cocaine and psychostimulants. All right, by Holly Higengard, Arati M. Menino, and Margaret Warner. All right, so the data from the National Vital Statistics System Mortality. All right, so right here it says from 2009 to 2019, the rate of overdose death involving both cocaine and opioids increased at a faster pace than the rate of overdose death with cocaine but no opioids. In 2019, 76% of overdose deaths involving cocaine, also involving opioid. The percentage varied by region from 83% in the Northeast to 63% in the West. Now check this out. It says from 2009 to 2016, the rate of overdose death involving psychostimulants but no opioids was higher than the rate for deaths involving both drugs from 2017 through 2019. The pattern reversed with a higher rate for deaths involving both psychostimulants and opioids. And then goes down to say in 2019, 54% of overdose deaths involving psychostimulants, also involving opioid. The percentage varied by region from 80% in the Northeast to 44% in the West. All right, then. So yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of increased death with opioids, and then if you mix in with cocaine, that's going to make it even worse, obviously. All right, so now let's go down to here real quick. It says in 2019, the percentage of cocaine involved overdose deaths that also involve opioids vary by region, right? So as you can see, here's the chart in the United States, right? Northeast, the Midwest, the South, and the West. So over in the Northeast area, right, 83.1%. All right, so it says in 2019, 15,883 drug overdose deaths involving cocaine occurred in the United States. Of these, 75.5% also involving opioid. And it says the percentage of cocaine-involved overdose deaths that also involve an opioid vary by regions: 83.1% in the Northeast, 78.1% in the Midwest, and 70.9% in the South, and 63.0% in the West. All right. And so here's another chart. All right, then. So that's that information, and you guys can look this up for yourself. All right, so this one talks about the opioid availability statistics from the International Narcotics Control Board do not reflect the medical use of opioids. Comparison with cell data from Scandinavia. So I'm not going to go into that, so I'm going to skip that. All right, and see, this is another website, which is the hhs.gov, which deals with the opioid epidemic. So right here where it says, what is the U.S. opioid epidemic? So it says, in the late 1990s, pharmaceutical companies reassured the medical community that patients would not become addicted to opioid pain relievers, and healthcare providers began to prescribe them at a greater rate. So increased prescription of opioid medication led to widespread misuse of both prescription and non-prescription opioids before it became clear that these medications could indeed be highly addictive. In 2017, HHS declared a public health emergency and announced a 5-point strategy to combat the opioid crisis. All right, so here's the statistics. The opioid epidemic by numbers: 70,630 people died from drug overdose in 2009. 1.6 million people had an opioid use disorder in the past year. And 745,000 people used heroin in the past year. 1.6 million people misused prescription pain reliever for the first time. 48,006 people, 48,006 deaths attributed to the overdosing on synthetic opioids other than methadone in 12-month period ending June 2020. Okay, so it says 10.1 million people misuse prescription opioids in the past year. 2 million people use methamphetamine in the past year. 50,000 people use heroin for the first time. 14,480 deaths attributed to overdosing on heroin. All right, so right here, it goes into understanding the opioid crisis. Devastating consequences of the opioid epidemic include increasing in opioid misuse and related overdoses, as well as the rising incidence of newborns experiencing withdrawal syndrome due to opioid use and misuse during pregnancy. All right, so you can look more into that. Now, let me go ahead and read the comments. It says, "Sus, human beings in general are victims of habits. The only way to stop a habit is to replace it with a more healthier habit." That's a fact. And I agree with you. I can't disagree with you on that. But the question becomes, what type of alternative would be effective to kick off the habit? Again, what type of alternative would be effective to kick off those habits? That's the question. Let's see. What's the next step? All right, so there's some books that I recommend people to look into that I came across. All right. So this book is called Iboga, the Root of All Healing. Daniel Brett. So this book was written by Daniel Brett in, what year did it come out? Let me look at the copyrights. I'm trying to find a copyright on here. Okay, well, I ain't finna scroll through the page to look for the copyright. But anyways. So here's part one. So it says, what is Iboga? And here's the quote. It says, the more the more one is able to articulate what it is, the less others are able to understand. Terence McKenna. All right. So Terence McKenna was known to be a person that was into the psychedelic use, whatnot. So that's when the scientific community start studying more about his work and his concept of psychedelic usage, etc. As a matter of fact, he used psychedelic himself. So yeah. So if you guys have not looked at Terence McKenna, there's videos of him on YouTube that you can find. All right. So it says, so what is Iboga? The word Iboga, occasionally spelled Iboka or Iboga, comes from the Siko verb bagaga. Is it bogaga? Yeah, bogaga, meaning to care for, refers to plant that contains the ibogaine alkaloids. And chief among these is the Central African rainforest snub, the Tibonathi Iboga. All right, so basically it goes into that. This is a good book so far, just by looking at it and skimming through it. I think that you can read more into it. So this one's called The Iboga, the Root of All Healing, and by Daniel Brett. All right. Okay, and then also here's another book. It's called Painkiller and Empire of Deceit and the Origins of America's Opioid Epidemic by Barry Meyer. Okay. All right, so this is expanded and updated edition. And this came out it came out in 2003. That's the first edition. And the second edition, or the updated version, came out in 2018. Okay. All right, so let's see the prologue, Book of the Dead. And I won't go into that. So basically, he starts off telling the story, and then he goes into before he go into the actual background about the opioid crisis. So I'm not gonna go through all of this. If you guys want to check this book out, you can. All right. Yeah, I'm not gonna go through it all. So I just wanted to show you all the title of the book, which is Painkiller and Empire of Deceit and the Origin of America's Opioid Epidemic by Barry Meyer. So the book is available. Okay. All right. So again, so you guys check out this book called The Iboga, the Root of All Healing, and Painkiller and Empire of Deceit and the Origin of America's Opioid Epidemic, Barry Meyer. Okay, now going back to the comments, and I'm gonna have to read some comments on my phone. If there's any comments on here. Okay. So it says, that's why I say habit versus addiction, because we can choose our habit, although hard to break, we can choose them. In short thinking is a habit, and the first habit to break with addiction. It's changing the thought pattern habits and begin to pick habits that goes with those thoughts. Most can shake the mental part outside those dangerous toxins that come into withdrawal. Yeah, true. But then again, this is what you gotta look at. When it comes to drugs, in particularly, You may have fought off the addiction of drugs. You may fought it off. You may have got away from doing it, but your brain cannot fight the addiction because it's like it does some type of permanent damage or semi-permanent damage to the brain. Okay? Meaning that the brain in totality is not damaged, but the part of it is still affected by the drug, the constant drug usage. So it's like your brain still crave for that. So you may have got away from, let's say you stopped doing it for 15 years. Let's say you stopped doing drugs for 15 years, right? Okay, 15 years of cleaning, being clean from drug, going to rehab, but at the same time, you're still recovering within those 15 years bracket. So now, not only your brain got some issues, but also that's going to come along some health issues, some serious health issues, right? You might end up having some type of heart failure because of those years of drug usage. You see what I'm saying? So you may change your habit, you may do different things, but your brain is so used to it, and your brain still operate as if it's still hooked on drug. As yeah, you said them receptors. Yeah, them receptors. Yeah. So that receptors of your brain is still operating as if you're still hooked on it. And going back to the point that I was making earlier, that's why you see people who are former addicts, they carry on like certain type of behavior. They become a little bit more aggressive. They they'll start to talk a little louder, or they might start shaking or things like that, because because they're trying to like fight the habit, like their brain trying to fight that habit. But that receptor of their brain is causing them to act that way. Menthol is a bad one on that. Oh yeah, it is. But anyways, this is a good topic. This is why people gotta study into neuroscience and study neurology. So once we study neurology and study drugs more and understand the epidemic behind drugs and understand the effects of it and look at the psychedelics and stuff like that, we'll be able to become more aware and be more conscious about how these drugs have an effect on us. And we become one thing about the medical industry, let's talk about the medical industry. It's a big business. It's one of the biggest scamming business ever. The medical industry, the insurance company, pharmaceutical industry, they make the most money off of people because there are always going to be people that's going to be sick. There's going to be people that want to buy drugs. There's going to always be people that's going to be in and out the hospital. They make the most money. And the reason why I say they the most biggest scam, the biggest con industry, because when you go to these doctors or you go to these nurses, you don't know what type of medicine they giving you 9 times out of 10. You only trust in their words. So when you look at the drugs that you get and you see these gigantic vocabulary words that you can't even pronounce, that you never heard of, and you ask the doctor what it is, they can tell you anything. They can tell you just about anything just so you won't feel uncomfortable and you'll take them. You know what I'm saying? They probably won't even tell you what the side effect is of those medicine. So people start taking those drugs and they realize that the drug work, but then they become so addicted to them because they feel like the drug can overcome their issues. So yeah, that if you want to talk about gangster and you want to talk about who the biggest hustlers are, those in the medical industry. The medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry is the biggest hustler, biggest scam out of all of them. I mean, but it's sad that we have to go to these places because when we have serious health issues, right, we have to go and we have to rely on them to give us the conventional medicine to help overcome those problems that we have. But at the same time, we at a major risk. And we got to be real about that. It's a major risk. And I can see why people don't like going to the doctor. I can see why people don't like getting vaccinated or taking insulin or taking pills and stuff, because you really don't know what type of side effects you're going to deal with. But at the same time, you know you need these things because they are necessary, and that's your alternatives. Like you can't always rely on contemporary medicine, which means like medicinal herbs or or home remedies and things like that. You can't totally rely on that because medicinal herbs and home remedy is not going to, it's not going to cure all the problem. It's not going to do all the work. So you got to bring in conventional medicine. But with conventional medicine, you have to be extra careful where you go and get them. You got to be careful what doctor prescribe them to you or what pharmacist going to give them to you. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what type of medicine you did. You thinking that you getting the actual medicine. Mr. Chris, how you doing? Long time. Thank you for allowing me to come by. Thank you for allowing me to come by. I enjoy the platform. I really do. Thank you for coming. Thank you for allowing me to come by. Thank you. I didn't think you was going to allow me, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyways, shout out to Chris from Team Osiris. He had to come through. He gave his, he was telling me thank you. So shout out to Chris. But anyways, you don't really know what's in the drugs that you're taking. Like that's just how bad it can be. You know what I'm saying? Like when you go to these doctors, they can tell you anything just about because they know that you don't really know anything about these chemicals and the chemical reaction and all of that stuff and the chemistry behind it. And you don't know the names of them. You never heard of them. You know what I'm saying? So they can basically tell you anything. You trust in the words of these doctors or pharmacists. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so what do I do at this point? So it's like a catch-22. It's a catch-22 because you don't know what to do, but you got to rely on something to help you, right? You in need, your body is in need of it. So that's why I am for integrative medicine, because with integrative medicine, right, which deals with both conventional and contemporary medicine, all right, so I'm gonna make it real quick. So getting back to what I was saying, yes, I support both integrative medicine. I support integrative medicine because at least you have the opportunity to be able to not only deal with conventional medicine, but also contemporary medicine. And you can balance the two out because you don't want to just put your total reliance on contemporary medicine. And you definitely don't want to put total reliance on conventional medicine as well. You want to be able to use both and, find what's more convenient for you, because the conventional medicine could be just as bad as dealing with contemporary medicine. So like I say, it's a catch-22. It's a catch-22 because you don't know what type of medicine you're doing. You think this medicine making you feel good and it's helping, it's working, but then when it comes to that side effect, that's where the problem kicks in. You was unaware of that. So but that's all I gotta say. That's all I'm going to build on. Thank you guys for coming through. Thank you, brother Vinyasa, for coming through. Thank you, Centavo. Thank you, Chris, for stopping by. And thank you, Centavo and Vinyasa, for sharing y'all testimonies and y'all stories. I'm sorry to hear that you had loved ones that went through this and y'all had to watch what was happening. I know that was very traumatic for both of y'all growing up as kids, looking at your parents and your grandparents going through drug addiction and trying to battle it, because that's the biggest fight for them. They trying to just get off the habit and they couldn't kick the habit. So yeah, it's a big struggle. I mean, you know, and I understand that, so I sympathize with y'all pain. So I'm glad that y'all was able to come on here and be comfortable and share your stories. And I know that you guys got more to share, but there'll be some other time maybe. But yeah, thank y'all for coming through. All right, so until then, peace and power, elevation be to all you beautiful people out there. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, like my channel, share my channel, all that great stuff. Check out the contents and whatever. All right. And again, thank you, Chris, for allowing me to come over to the platform and watch the video. And I'm laughing for a reason, but I'm gonna keep it to myself. All right. All right, then. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. Y'all take it easy. Y'all be safe. We're in the post-pandemic now. We're in the post-COVID-19. Now they're talking about there's this monkey virus going around here. I'm gonna have to look up more about this monkey virus, and then I'm gonna share some information with you guys because I'm curious to know. Because I don't want to get in contact with that monkey virus shit. That's the last thing I want to get in contact with. I don't want to get no monkey pox, none of that shit. All right, but I'm gonna look more into that information. And then we're gonna have a conversation about that. But yeah, we're in the post-pandemic era. We're in the post-COVID. COVID ain't went nowhere. However, COVID is still around. All right, COVID is still around, but we're in the post-pandemic. Okay, so things are slowly going back to its regular routine, and people are able to go out and enjoy themselves a little bit more, etc. All right, so y'all take it easy, y'all be safe, and I'm gonna talk to you guys later. So peace and power, elevation be to all of you, and make sure you subscribe and like your channel. And thank you so much. Deuces.